welcome to our third presentation on alternative dispute resolution. We have our three parties online and FaceTiming us, and we have Henry and Preston here. We are first going to do a game to get started and to illustrate a point. First thing I'd like you to do is assume the position of your elbows. Just pick a partner and put your elbows on the chair here. There you go. Now we're going to see, the first thing is, it's very easy. You have two things you must know. First, you get a point if the back of your partner's hand touches the table. You can hold each other's hands. There you are.
Are we arm wrestling?
So you get a point if it's an exercise. If the back of your partner's hand touches the table, you get a point. And you want to get as many points for yourself as possible. You don't care about anybody else, okay? So each point is worth an M&M. You will have only 10 seconds to get as many M&Ms as you can. So ready, set, go. All right, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's pull. How many points did you get?
I have no idea. I just won. That's all I know.
Ellie won. How many points did you get, do you think?
20?
20? Okay. How many did you get, Henry?
None.
Preston and Tommy, how many did you get?
1.
You got 1 because why? You were arm wrestling, or what were you doing?
Yeah.
You were arm wrestling, so nobody. It was a deadlock. Okay. So the reason why I'm asking that is what if you had worked together? How could you have done something so that both of you could have gotten M&Ms?
You could have given each other strength.
True. There you go. You could have taken turns, right? What else?
Talked it over and have both of us touch our arms to the table.
Right. Yeah, you could have compromised, right? Had both of them do it together. Cool. So that's what alternative dispute resolution is all about, is learning how to have a win-win situation. And using a collaborative approach instead of having a positional approach, meaning that you're only able to see your side of it. So alternative dispute resolution is a win-win solution by using a collaborative approach. There are two kinds of ADR. There's binding and non-binding. Arbitration is an example. Auto insurance claims are mandated by the judge and can be a non-binding arbitration. Either party can walk away to continue costly litigation, or the arbitration may be mandated by a contract. More similarly, the court process can be also made with the decision to postpone and go to mediation. Another form of ADR is mediation. So examples are divorce and custody, land disputes, neighborhood disputes. They differ from arbitration in a way that is totally voluntary, not mandated by court or contract. So if either party does not agree, the negotiations are off and both parties walk away without a decision. This is William Ury.
Well, the subject of difficult negotiation reminds me of one of my favorite stories from the Middle East, of a man who left to his 3 sons 17 camels. And to the first son he left half the camels, to the second son he left a third of the camels, and to the youngest son he left a ninth of the camels. Well, 3 sons got into a negotiation. 17 doesn't divide by 2, it doesn't divide by 3, it doesn't divide by 9. Brotherly temper started to get strained. Finally, in desperation, they went and they consulted a wise old woman. The wise old woman thought about their problem for a long time, and finally she came back and said, well, I don't know if I can help you, but at least if you want, you can have my camel. So then they had 18 camels. The first son took his half of 18 is 9. The second son took his third, a third of 18 is 6. The youngest son took his ninth, a ninth of 18 is 2. You get 17. They had 1 camel left over. They gave it back to the wise old woman. Now, if you think about that story for a moment, I think it resembles a lot of the difficult negotiations we get involved in. They start off like 17 camels, no way to resolve it. Somehow what we need to do is step back from those situations, like that wise old woman, look at the situation through fresh eyes, and come up with an 18th camel.
So the question is how do we come up with that 18th camel? We realize that there's a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and there's a worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. That's the BATNA or the WHATNA. And it's basically a reality check. Like, what's going to happen if you all don't create an agreement? What happens if we don't resolve this ourselves? Who can the parties trust to be a non-biased mediator? So does anybody know what non-biased means?
No bias towards any of the parties involved?
Yeah, bias means not to have, take a side.
It's not personally involved.
Not personally involved. You know what that is, Ellie?
No, I have no idea.
When somebody doesn't take sides. So you have two friends that are arguing, right? And you don't take sides. So
You're not friends.
well, if there's two friends
You're
and
not friends.
you're just staying out of it. So you're not going to take sides.
Trust me, I know how that ends out.
So there are 5 steps to mediation. The first one on the bottom is the contract. So first we sign a contract, and here is an example for you here. I emailed those to you and Tommy and Aiden, Preston, and here you are. There's the contract. First we take the contract and we sign it. Oops, that's okay.
What?
And then the second step in our negotiation is to hear the stories. The third is to set the agenda. The fourth is brainstorming, and the fifth is writing an agreement. So the first step, like we said, was to take a contract, and that's the handout. Everyone signs this contract, so this is what it looks like. We commit to solving the problem. We agree not to interrupt each other. We agree to treat the other with respect. We permit each other to each other's own perspective. There are no acts or threats of violence. Everything is said in strict confidentiality. So after this has been signed, we do our first transition. We go from contract to hearing our stories. And this is what we can say. Please tell me what has brought you here today. And so with that, we have each party stand up or discuss to the other without being interrupted their perspective of the matter. So this brings us to our second step, which is listening with empathy and with an attitude of learning. Hearing our stories, when you do that, you ask productive questions and you test your understanding. So when you're hearing the stories also as a mediator, you want to paraphrase back. You want to say what they said back to them so that it's active listening. You acknowledge, but you don't agree with them. You avoid judging and defending or advising. But you also are very authentic. You stay authentic with your listening. So after the hearing stories of both parties happen, they both get a chance. The second transition happens from hearing stories to setting the agenda. I think you can say, I think we've had a good opportunity here from both of you. Let's try to identify and list the issues you need to discuss. So with that, we go to setting the agenda. And this is a flip chart, a virtual one. We identify the issues. We present them as shared concerns whenever possible. So we try to make sure that we're on common ground. We agree where to start once those issues are listed. So we find out which ones are common. So those are usually the easiest ones to address. And then we agree on facts, but not emotions. We stay objective. And then if we're really at a sticking point, we go and we caucus. And so caucusing is when you take the parties and you go to different rooms. So you say, I know that it'll be you'll anxiously be awaiting while we're in the other room, but we're going to talk, and then you'll get a turn to tell me also your perspective. So a lot of that happens in divorce, for example, or when there's touchy feelings going on, and we need to make sure that everybody might have some hidden interests that they want to divulge. So that brings us to our third transition, setting the agenda, to brainstorm. Now, so you can say, now that we have a good list and decided where we are starting with what issue, let's talk about what ideas you have for the first issue. That brings us to the fourth step. So with these issues, we're going to brainstorm ideas for each issue. And there's some rules for brainstorming. This is very standard for many industries when you brainstorm. The first one is to defer judgment. You never know where a good idea is going to come from. The second rule is encourage wild ideas. So wild ideas can often give rise to creative leaps. We build on those ideas of others. Number 4 would be stay focused on the topic. Number 5 is one conversation at a time. So we're going to always let somebody speak and not interrupt again. We're just going to stay visual, so we're going to write these all down, just like the gentleman in the picture. He's writing down all the ideas on the flip chart. And we're going to go for quantity. We want a lot of ideas on that paper. So that brings us to our fourth transition after brainstorming. We go to evaluating the ideas. So we can say, let's look at all these ideas and see which one might work the best to satisfy what each of you need. So then you go down the list and you start figuring out which idea is going to be the best. Which brings us to the last step. The fifth step in mediation is writing an agreement. So this is an example. We have a small claims court mediation agreement. And with this, you're going to say if it's resolved or not resolved. Both parties sign it, how much is due, the date it's going to be paid, and a description of the details of the actual agreement. Here's another example. We have an example of a family dispute, for example. Grandpa agrees that he needs to move to an assisted living facility. Everyone agrees that this should happen by early September. Everyone agrees that Tim should handle the sale of Grandpa's condo, on and on. So that's a family dispute. How are we doing on time? Here's one with a mediation agreement that is for a lease-tenant dispute. We talk about Parker agrees that he will look for another apartment and be out by September 30th. Stuck in pen. I don't know. Parker agrees to keep the cat inside the apartment. Mrs. Green agrees to give Parker a good reference. So, and then these disputants actually sign this mediation agreement, and it becomes a legally binding agreement if it's brought to court. So here we go. This is a true or false question. Is this a mediated or arbitrated dispute? Now that we've learned about those two things.
All right, Kevin, you are accused of making sexually suggestive remarks to Angela that made her feel uncomfortable. Solution. Angela, you are to make sexually suggestive remarks to Kevin that will make him uncomfortable. I accept your decision.
I love the face. What was that? Was that a mediated or arbitrated dispute?
Mediated?
Who made the decision?
The mediator.
So, in arbitration, who makes the decision?
The outside party.
Yes, the mediator, or who now is called the arbitrator. So it really was an arbitration because Michael decided the result. He said that just because one's saying it, then the other one needs to say it. So that was an arbitrated dispute there. Maybe we should turn up the volume because it's hard to hear. As much as possible. Okay, so here I have party 1 and party 2 and a mediator. So I'd like for Henry, can you read party 1 and And Ellie, can you read party 2? And then Preston, I'll be the mediator because you can't see it. So go ahead.
I know you keep saying it's your space, even though there's no assigned parking, but I keep forgetting.
Wait, what am I supposed to read?
Party 2.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yes, that's the problem.
I guess so.
And the mediator says, okay, all settled then.
I don't like you.
What is the hidden issue here, and what are the suggestions to remedy it? So this is from The Office also, and it's a really quick little 15-second deal.
I know, you keep saying it's your space even though there's no assigned parking, but I keep forgetting. Yes, that's the problem. I guess so.
Okay, well, all settled then.
I don't like you.
So she says that she doesn't like you, or she doesn't like the other woman, and so what is the actual hidden issue? Why is there this dispute really going on?
Because they dislike each other on a personal level?
Well, I don't know. Does the blonde one know that the other one disliked her? Because the face kind of looked a little shocked. Do you think that the other one doesn't like her?
Kind of.
I feel like there's a little passive aggressiveness going on in this dispute. And so that might be something to uncover and find out more about if they are really doing this because they don't like each other, or if there really is a misunderstanding.
Maybe they just kind of like each other and they maybe don't.
That's right.
Or that.
Or that. So,
Actually, I think it's a misunderstanding.
it's a misunderstanding. Okay. Okay, now we're going to learn about separating positions from issues and interests. First is a landlord-tenant dispute. And so the tenant says, I won't pay them anything. They posted the eviction notice on my front door. They didn't even put it in an envelope. It was right out there where all my neighbors could see it. Can you tell me what this tenant's position is? What's he digging his heels in about? What's he saying?
They disrespected him, so he's going to disrespect them back.
That might be an issue. Right. What's his position?
He's in a position that people are
Offensive.
boiling him.
He says, I won't pay them anything. They posted the eviction notice on my front door. They didn't even put it in an envelope. It was right out there where all my neighbors could see it. So we have an issue here of respect. What's his interest?
To not pay anything?
To not pay anything, yeah. But is that really his interest?
Well, his interest is to get them back for evicting them.
And so why would he want to get them back? What is he really searching for by getting him back?
A retribution?
Retribution, yeah. So what would be a more constructive way that we can go about retribution?
Paying the rent?
True.
Finding the money
Taking
to
a
pay
court.
them.
Do you think maybe he's interested in being respected?
Yes.
Okay,
I look at
we'll go to the next one now. Okay, so the issue is respect, interest is getting respect, and the position is that he's not going to pay them anything. So what we're going to try to do with that dispute is to actually have him understand that what he really wants is respect, and that he would be more flexible about this situation and eventually pay or leave. The second one is a husband-wife dispute. The wife speaking says, I don't care what you say. I'm accepting that sales job and I'll travel 3 out of 4 weeks each month. You're never here anyway. You work from dawn to dusk on that stupid project, and when you're home, your nose is buried in a book until it's bedtime. So, what's her position, Henry?
She wants a job.
Yeah, she's going to take the job, no matter what, he says, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, Ellie, what's the issue?
that the man doesn't want her to do that job, but the man isn't, he is doing the job, but when he comes home, he's not in a boat.
That's right. That's right. He's ignoring her, right? So what's her interest, Preston? What does she really want?
Hard to say.
Independence?
Independence, or maybe she wants some attention. It's usually the opposite of what their position is, it seems like. Or it has to do with the issue that she's being ignored, so probably the opposite of that is having a little bit of attention from her husband. Okay, here's another one. We'll keep practicing. The neighbor dispute. One neighbor speaking, "You have to tear down that shed. The kids were over there yesterday and Jack fell through the floorboard. He nearly broke his leg. The county should condemn the place." So what's the neighbor's position?
Take down the shed?
Yep. And what's the issue?
The floorboards
The-
are broken.
It's dangerous?
Yes, it's dangerous, exactly. And what are our interests, our common interests? It's just the opposite of what the issue is.
Safety of the children?
Yes, safety of the children, exactly.
Gotta protect them children.
Here's another one. So, debt dispute. The payee is speaking. Okay, he'll pay me by the 1st or I'm taking him to court. He's so irresponsible. He never makes his payment as we agreed. I still haven't received a check for this month, and it's already the 15th. My bills are piling up, and one is already overdue.
The whining one isn't getting his bills. And he is getting his bills, but he isn't getting any money for his bills.
Right.
And,
How does that make him feel?
Uh,
When he's not getting paid and they agreed to pay, he agreed to pay him.
irritating.
Irritated, yes. Right. And so what would he like? Henry, what's his interest?
It's money to be paid.
Right, what's the opposite of the issue? The issue is that he's irritated because he keeps on not following through with the agreements. So what would be an interest, a common interest for the two of them? How could they settle this?
Just give the question, Preston.
Anyone else?
Wait, what's the question again?
I mean,
Could take him to court.
You could do that, but that's what we're trying
it
to
seems
avoid.
pretty straightforward, really.
I mean,
What is this guy looking for? I mean,
Money.
Is it really about the money?
Yes.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
gonna get his money, but
absolutely.
what's really bugging him?
The man.
That he's not getting his money.
He's not getting money, but what about not getting his money bugs him?
But he can't pay his bills?
They're making him go over
Yeah.
his bills.
That's
So
right.
he's making. The
He'll
other
go
guy
to
is
jail
making his
and-
problems.
So-
The payee's
So when
problem.
you feel as though your bills are overdue, what does that make you feel? How does that?
Anxious.
It's anxious, right? What else?
Anxious. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, anxious. Maybe another word for that would be insecure. About it makes you feel less secure about your bills and a steady schedule for somebody who's used to doing things properly or on time. It's unsettling, right? So he wants a little structure. Okay, and here is the last one. Okay, you guys are doing great. So this is a roommate dispute, and you guys might be getting into this here shortly because you're going to be roommates. One roommate speaking, "I just want her out of here. Sharing this apartment was a bad idea. She's a slob. Last week I brought my parents home for dinner, and her breakfast dishes were still in the sink, and she had left her dirty gym clothes lying all over the place." What's a position? Anyone?
Clean up, you slob.
Yeah. And what does he want? What does he want with the slob? Let me read it
To
one
get
more.
her out.
Yeah, I just want her out of here. Sharing his apartment was a bad idea. So what's the issue?
She's a slob.
And she's throwing her gym clothes all over. and she didn't clean her dishes.
Right. Cleanliness is the issue, wouldn't you say?
Mhm.
That's a kind of a benign way of putting it as a blanketed statement, because you don't want to have the statement take sides. And so what could be the interest? What could be a common interest between these two of these parties? Does the one want to actually move out?
No. She wants to stay at
No.
home.
The common interest is to not move.
Or to make
to
that
live in a place
that's
comfortably.
Free.
comfortable for both of them.
Bingo. Very, very good. So, any questions? Do you have any questions that you wanted to ask me?
That I'm super mad at you.
How much does a mediator cost?
Oh, good question. About starts at $50 an hour and goes up to, that's a beginner mediator, and then the ones who are attorneys would be $250 an hour. Judges and arbitrators who are judges, they're $350 an hour. So it's not a bad living if you can get the clients and build a reputation. Okay, thank you so much for listening to our ADR presentation, and we'll catch you next time.
No, we won't.